Welcome to this edition of Inside Look. You might know my guest, Peter Cox. He's the editor of the Free Press. He's been here a lot recently for elections, and he's back again because there might be something you don't know. He's also an author. Thank you for being here, Peter.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
First of all, tell people a little bit about yourself and, what you do.
Well, I've lived in North Attleboro for about 4 years now. I became the editor of the Free Press about 5 years ago, and that's my full-time job. And in my spare time, I like to write, and I completed a novel a couple years ago, and I'm self-publishing it this month.
Now, how did you, obviously, being the editor of a newspaper, you do write a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But how did you come to doing, like almost a child's, not a child's book, but like a teenage book?
Well, I've been writing since I was 15. I don't know why, but when I was 15, I decided to write a book, and I was very proud of it. I'm not proud of it anymore because I was 15, and it wasn't great. But I've been writing ever since just for fun, and let's see, it was about 2 years ago. I started this book here, and when I was done with it, I was proud enough of it that I tried to get publishers and see how it would go. And why young adults? I like to read a lot of young adult books, Harry Potter and things like that.
Now, you mentioned 2 years. Is it that time consuming? You've got a full-time job. You've got all this. Is it difficult to get all that done?
I would say the actual writing part didn't take me that long. It only took me about a month to write the first draft. Yeah. It was after the first draft I spent well over a year editing it.
Oh, goodness.
Having friends read it, having professional editors read it, all to kind of perfect the book. That took a long time. And then trying to find the right agent and the right publisher, that takes time too.
And how has that gone?
If you're going to be a writer, you have to get used to rejection pretty quickly. Stephen King said that he was rejected by over 100 different publishers before he got his first contract.
Wow. So that's what you've been dealing with?
Yeah, that's what I've been dealing with. Yeah.
Now, I think this, actually, it's April, and I think your book, actually, before we get into what the book's about, it actually debuted this April, correct?
Yes, it did. It debuted April 11th, which was National Pet Day.
Really?
Yeah, that's why I picked that date. And it's around the time kids get out for a break, so I thought that'd be a good time to start selling it,
Now, as I can see, it looks like it's a mystery. How did you get onto the topic of mystery, first of all?
Well, it's called The Mystery of the Masked Marauder.
Okay.
And I've always really liked reading mysteries, and I think that if you're going to write, you should write what you like to read. So I've always liked the mystery element of every book I read. I think the first few Harry Potter books really had a good mystery element to them, and that's one of the reasons I liked them. So.
And that's probably why you referenced Stephen King as
right.
well.
Yeah, he's another one of my favorite authors. So.
Now, self-publishing something, is that difficult? Do you have to invest your own money?
You used to have to invest your own money. Nowadays, you really don't have to. I went through a company called CreateSpace, which is owned by Amazon, and they're print on demand.
Wow.
So whenever somebody orders a copy, they print a copy and ship it to them. There's no upfront cost to me. The only upfront cost I had was I paid for the cover art, the illustration.
Oh, that's it?
That was the only upfront cost to me, and some promotion here and there and little costs like that.
So who does the, on the cover, who does that? Do they hire out a company, or do you choose?
You can hire out a company, or you can design it yourself. I had a local publisher named a local author named John Winchell. He used to live in North Attleboro. He's a good friend of mine. I had him illustrate the cover, and I think it came out pretty nicely.
Yeah, that's very nice. That's why I was wondering if that was something you got to choose, or they read your book and then they decide what to draw. But you can actually assist them in what's...
It took a long time, because he would sketch out a drawing, and then I would say, oh, I don't like this part, and I don't like this part, and together we kind of came up with it. I can't do art, so I had to trust him, and he did a great job. But it's a process.
Must be the editor in you.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, why don't you read us a little bit from the book, just to get a little taste of it?
I can do that.
Like your favorite part of the book.
Well, we can start at the beginning.
Okay.
I'll just read the first couple of lines.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'll give you a synopsis first. Do you want me to do that?
Fantastic.
Okay. So the book is about a young boy, 13 years old, who discovers that he can talk to animals. And
very cool.
with their help, he solves crimes around the neighborhood. So that's the quick little synopsis. It starts off, I talk to animals. Other than that, my life is pretty normal. Well, talking to animals isn't that impressive. Most people talk to animals. What I mean is I talk to animals and they talk back. Also, I'm not crazy. So that's how it starts. It would be...
Now, where did you get the idea for this, specifically?
I'm not sure. I just, I sat down and I decided I wanted to write a novel and I wanted it to take about a month. And the first line just kind of came to me and I built the whole book around that. Just a kid who discovers he can talk to his pets and they help him solve crimes. I'm not really sure where it came from.
It just kind of came to you?
Yeah.
Now, has your wife been supportive in the whole process?
She has. She was the first person to edit it with me. And I don't like to read books more than once or twice. She's read it 5 or 6 times with me to help me tweak it. And she's been very supportive through writing it, through editing it. She's been a great help, yeah.
Well, because I know from your job that you do full-time,
Mm-hmm.
You have long hours, a lot of days. So to be able to do something like this at the same time, it's lengthy, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is. She enjoys doing it with me, so that helps a lot. She also works long hours. She's a wedding photographer.
Oh, okay,
So she's at home editing photos late at night, so it's okay if we're both doing some work, during our
So
home
she's
time.
used to the hours
Yeah.
that are gonna, because then you're home at the same time, most likely.
Right, yeah.
Now, how exciting was it? I'm sure your family must have been excited to hear that you've written a book and you're publishing it, it's for sale. I mean, they must have been so thrilled.
Yeah, my family's really excited about it. A lot of my friends are really excited about it. And now we're just trying to kind of keep that momentum going, because you don't just want your family and friends to read it. You want
The children
to
out,
read
the
it,
young
yeah.
adults, everyone out there to read it. You want people to buy it for
Right.
their children.
My mom's been kind of your typical extremely supportive mother. You know what I mean? Like the day it came out, she bought a bunch of copies. She's been handing them out to all the kids she knows, and that's how moms are.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It reminds me of when I was a kid and, I'd play sports and they'd give you like that box of, candy bars to sell. My parents just didn't want to deal with it, so they'd just buy all the candy bars.
Right. I'm sure a lot of kids who sell Girl Scout cookies, their parents have way more cookies than they know what to do
Then
with.
they know what to do
Yeah.
with, exactly. Now, so what happens with this? Are you going to write another one? Or are you going to see what, how well this does?
I've written a couple more books since, and they're kind of
Have you?
waiting on the back burner.
Really?
Yeah. They're still in the editing phase. Like I said, I find the writing part is easy for a first draft because I try not to put too much pressure on myself. I think that's why a lot of people say, I want to write a book, but I've never gotten around to it. I think it's because people they're nervous. They're scared that what they'll produce won't be very good. So I don't let myself worry about the first draft. I just want to get it out there. So that part happens pretty quickly because I don't let myself stress about it, but then the editing takes a really long time. It's been difficult writing the sequel, though, because I don't know how anybody does it. Not that many people have even read it yet, and I already feel the pressure to make it as good as the first one and like the first one. So it's been a challenge. I've been working on it here and there, so I want there to be sequels, but it's going to take a bit of time, I think.
And like you said, something you mentioned also is you've got to be willing to accept the rejection, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's not easy.
No. What I would say is you hear about the rejection that famous authors have gone through, and you think you'll be able to deal with it fine, but then when it happens, you still get disappointed. In the back of your head, you're imagining that you're going to be the one to beat the odds. And
Right, you've written a bestseller,
Right.
and this is...
that's not going to happen right away, and you know that, but in the back of your mind, you kind of are hoping you'll get that bestseller right away. Basically.
So this clearly is something that you look to do for the rest of your life, almost.
Yeah, I would like to be a novelist kind of on the side, and I mean, maybe full-time. I like my job, so...
No, of course you love your
Yeah.
job, but this is something that you have a passion for.
I'm very passionate about novels, yeah.
Like
Writing.
almost a hobby that you've just taken a liking to and been successful in doing.
Right. Yeah, I'd agree with that. And it's similar to what I do now. I write a lot for the newspaper, and now I'm writing novels on the side too. So I like to write.
Now, how did you, because of reading young adult novels, is that why you chose to write for that age group?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I've been told that I remember my childhood better than a lot of people do. I don't know if that's a compliment about my memory or if people are just saying that I haven't grown up yet. But whenever I write about kids, people respond well to it. They say, "Oh, I remember feeling that way, but I didn't remember feeling that way until your book mentioned it." So once adults started telling me that about my short stories, I realized that writing for kids is something I think I can do. And I've tried to write a few books for adults, but I'm not very good at it. So
you found your niche
yeah,
with
I
that.
think I did. Yeah. And it's a lot of people nowadays, a lot of adults like to read young adult stories, and I think that's because they're a little bit more accessible. They're a little, I don't want to say easier to read, but they tend to be shorter and they tend to be a little more action-packed. And as a person who works a full-time job that can take long hours, who likes to read, young adult books are what I tend to read because they're shorter and more accessible.
Like the Harry Potters, like you mentioned, even Twilight, things like that.
I haven't read Twilight yet, but I like The Hunger Games.
Okay.
That's a good book. I like some of the classic young adult books too, like The Wind in the Willows. I don't know if you've read that.
No. You
that's a
see,
good
you're
one.
younger than me. Because I remember, like, the Babysitter Club and things like that.
Well, I liked the Boxcar Children.
There you go, yeah.
Happy Hollisters. The kind of
Oh, I
detective
remember
stories.
all of them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's fantastic. So you're into the mystery aspect. Now, for people out there, you're young. You obviously work, you're young. You obviously work in a field of writing, and now you're involved in this. What would you tell kids that are like, "Ooh, I'd love to be a novelist"? I mean, what's your suggestions to them?
To stick with it. I don't think you want to pin all your hopes on being a novelist and making your money at it necessarily. In college, I studied literature to start off, and then I realized I wanted to make some money and to support myself, so I switched to journalism. But I think it's important for kids who want to write to stick with it, to practice, and to keep reading. And I think that's the key to writing well, is to read.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is something you did. I mean, regardless of the like the Harry Potters and things, but you must have done a lot of reading, and so that really was key.
Yeah, I read a lot as a kid. I think once I was done with college, there was a bit of the kind of post-college burnout, I guess. I really didn't want to read for a while, especially not for fun, because it always seemed like I was studying books. I'd pick up a thriller by Stephen King, and I would find myself trying to memorize it because I was preparing for a test. But once I got past that, I started reading again for fun. I think that's really important. And I think for kids, it's just not giving up and accepting constructive criticism well. Because, the first book I wrote when I was 15, it wasn't very good, and people told me that, and I learned from it. And I think
that's what I was going to say. How difficult was that to hear?
At 15,
yeah.
It was really hard. Rejection's always hard, but especially when it's something you're passionate about, something that kind of came from inside yourself. A book is it's a very personal thing, because it's something you created, So when somebody doesn't like it, it can be difficult at first, but I think you have to learn from those experiences.
Because you're right, it is a part of yourself, because it came from your head.
Right.
It came from your mind. So it's almost like reading somebody's journal or diary and saying, "Oh, listen," but and so that's probably a key piece of advice to tell kids.
Right. You can't take it too personally, which is hard to do. But they're not saying, it can sound like they're saying, "I don't like the way you think," or "I don't like the things you like, I don't like the things you're passionate about, you think you're funny, but you're not," that sort of thing. But you just can't take it too personally, and you have to learn from it.
Now, how much has it helped that because you work in a newspaper, I'm sure you get criticism all the time from that. No matter what type of media source you're in, you're always going to get somewhat criticized, correct? So does that help transfer over to...
It definitely does. To be a journalist, you have to have kind of thick skin. You can't let criticism get to you too much. And I definitely think that's helped. I still don't like it when people don't like what I've written, but it's going to happen. So the more it happens, the more you get used to it.
Now, in the day and age of computers, I'm thinking you're sitting there writing it on a typewriter, but obviously you're writing it on a computer. But how key is having the technology we have today making it easier for you to do things like this?
It makes things a lot easier. The print-on-demand option wasn't even around, I don't think, 10 years ago. When I first looked into self-publishing my first book, it was going to cost like $10,000. You had to buy, a minimum number of copies. They had to all be printed up front. You had to pay upfront costs. It had to be shipped to you, and then you were in charge of selling it. Now with the on-demand printing, there's basically no upfront cost, and I can promote myself on Facebook. It's for sale on Amazon. There's a Kindle edition.
Very cool.
Technology has really helped the self-published authors. They want to be called indie authors or independent authors now. But I think technology's made it a lot easier for anybody who has a book to get it out there for people to read.
Now, with something like this, can a publisher, almost like an agent in sports, can they pick up your series and,
Yes.
take you on as a client?
If I remember correctly, The Martian, which they turned into a movie with
Yes.
Matt Damon, that was self-published first.
Really?
And then a traditional publisher picked it up. Yeah. So that can happen. I'm not going to get my hopes up for it, but it can still happen.
And I know that there's a guy from Plainville who owned The Unlikely Story. Was he self-published? Who wrote the...
I'm not sure what his background was beforehand. I'm not sure. I should probably ask him.
But you have to start
Yeah, you have to
somewhere,
start
right?
somewhere. Mhm, you do.
Now, for people watching this and they want to buy your book, check it out, what do they do? How can they...
Well, there's two easy ways. The first would be to go to Amazon.com and just search for The Mystery of the Masked Marauder. So you can get it on Amazon. You can get it on a couple of other affiliated websites. You can get it on your Kindle, like I said. It's also going to be for sale at An Unlikely Story in Plainville. They have a nice program there for local authors, so they can go in there and ask for it, and that would be great. And then right now, those are the only two main places you can get it. I have a Facebook page and a website. Facebook page, the links get kind of long, so you can just search for The Mystery of the Masked Marauder, and you can find it.
So what you have is, it's not your personal Facebook page?
No, it's a Facebook page for the book.
For solely the book?
Yes.
Which is excellent. Have you gotten good feedback on that?
I have, yeah, so far. I want to start kind of joining up with other local authors and do some networking. Self-publishing is a lot of work, because you have to try to promote yourself, and you want to get people to review it, and probably 98% of them are going to say, no, I don't have time. So again, you have to be used to the rejection. I've gotten used to it by now, but I've gotten a good response on Facebook. The early reviews have been pretty good. So
that's fantastic. It's only been, less than a month?
Yeah, it's been about a week and a half, and we've had a couple of people review it already, and 5-star reviews, so the early reviews are very good so far. I'm excited about that.
I was just going to say, how great does it make all the time that you spent on that in the years to hear good reviews about it?
That's really exciting, and it's very relieving, because I sent it out to this one professional book reviewer, and I was kind of very nervous about that, because she said, if I don't like it, I'm going to give it a bad review, and it's going to go online. And so I was very nervous, and then she said that she loved the book, and it wasn't just exciting, it was very relieving, because you never know how other people are going to view your work. So.
I was going to say, especially after hearing that she could give it a bad review, and she's a professional...
Right, professional book reviewer.
Right, that's her
critic,
title. It must have felt, you must have said, like, big sigh of relief.
Yeah.
All the time I spent on this was worth every moment.
Yeah, and the most rewarding thing is if kids like it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm most excited about. And I've had a couple of kids read it already, and they've really enjoyed it, and that's the most rewarding thing for me.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Have local kids here in the school system, have you distributed any to kids, like maybe through even the library or anything?
Not yet. I'm talking with the library right now about the best way to do that. So I'm hoping to do that soon. I'm in the process.
I was going to say, like, even a book signing or something like that.
Yeah.
Are you looking for...
I'm looking into doing that. An Unlikely Story, they said they're hoping to have, like, a local author fair, and I'll take part in that. And I'm hoping to do some book signings soon. People can check my Facebook page. Like I said, they can just search for The Mystery of the Masked Marauder on Facebook, and I'll post any updates there. there's a couple of bookstores and a couple of other publications that are have invited me to do book readings and book signings and stuff like that.
That's fantastic. Do you ever think it would come to this point?
I hoped it would, but I didn't want to get my hopes up. So.
When you were 15, now older you, looking back at the 15-year-old you, would you have been like, don't quit? Which
Yeah.
you clearly didn't.
Yeah, that's what I would tell myself, is to not quit. And I don't plan to quit. Even if this only sells a dozen copies, I don't plan to quit. I plan to keep going and keep writing, because it's what I love to do.
Now, do you know how many copies are sold? Like, do you get a breakdown, or?
I do get a breakdown, but it's very delayed. It takes a long time because I guess Amazon or CreateSpace, their program, they have to kind of validate the sales and validate the payment, and then it takes a long time. So I'm really not even sure how many I've sold. So.
Except to your mom, right?
Right, except to my mom.
Now, did she read the book, I'm assuming?
Yeah, she did.
And was she impressed?
She was impressed, yeah.
So she's very proud of you, I'm
Yeah.
assuming. And does your wife write at all?
She doesn't write creatively, no.
No. Okay. So she's just there to read, the finished material and
Right.
help you realize what you need to change.
She did take journalism in college. She was a journalism major just like I was. So she's a helpful editor, I would say. And she can be a harsh editor, too, which is good.
But you're used to it.
Right, yeah.
So you're fine with it. Is there anything else you'd like to mention about the book, about how people can get it, anything like that?
I think it's a good read for adults and kids. I think it's pretty funny. It's kind of a humorous mystery novel. And like I said, they can get it on Amazon, they can get it for Kindle, and they can get it at An Unlikely Story. And I think that's a great spot to go and get books, because you're supporting a local business and a local author at the same time.
And if you haven't been there, it's such a cool place.
It really is. An Unlikely Story is a really neat bookstore. Yeah.
And it's fantastic that he has the sections for people like you, and hopefully soon you'll be famous.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Well, Peter, it was a pleasure, and congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm very excited for you, and I look forward to the next one.
All right. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Maybe in
Thanks for that.
another year, right?
Yeah, maybe a year or so. We'll see.
So you heard him. You can get it on Amazon for your Kindle, An Unlikely Story. It's Peter Cox. You can find his book, The Mystery of the Masked Marauder, on Facebook. If you have any questions, he will answer them. Thank you for watching this edition of Inside Look.